welcome to another episode of But Is It?
How are you doing?
Good. Just coming off of a vacation.
Yeah.
Which I don't often take, like actual vacations.
Me neither.
I typically just go back to my hometown in Washington and do things because there's a wedding or funerals or graduations or other milestone things, and I never take actual vacations.
I was gonna say, I don't even feel like those count as vacation. I feel like seeing family does not count as vacation.
It's just time off.
Yeah. I feel like a vacation is like going on a trip.
Yes. So I've like taken trips back home, but that tends to eat up all of my PTO.
Yeah.
And so we actually went on a trip. We did go to Washington to see family and friends. It was my high school reunion.
Oh, fun.
20 years.
Mm.
So super exciting and super fun. But we were there for a few days, and then we decided to make a full, real vacation out of it. And so myself, my husband, and my daughter went and drove down to the Oregon coast. And we stayed in a little beach city called Rockaway Beach. But we drove through Astoria. Because we went down over through Olympia and through the coastal Oregon-Washington border. So for those that know about Astoria, it is the location of Goonies, and Mikey's house is there, and you can go see it. So it wasn't what I expected at all. I thought we were just going to drive by and like try to make as little as fuss as possible. Yeah. Drive by, take a photo, and then leave. Yeah. But you actually cannot drive up to the house. They have like a sign. You get close to it, and they have a sign that says, "Hey, you guys," and it basically says, "Park on the street here and walk up." Yeah. And all the like do's and don'ts, like don't disturb the residents. Yeah. Don't. Drive up and park. And so you
don't go up and knock on the door and do the truffle shuffle.
Yeah, no, don't do that. And Data's house is still there. It's a different color now, but they still have a zip line. It's not the same zip line because it definitely looks different, but there's a zip line connecting the houses.
So funny that Data from Goonies and Data from Star Trek Next Generation are why I say Data as Data and not Data.
I never even realized that.
Yeah.
But I must have also.
Those are the first times I probably ever heard the word.
Yeah.
And they're both Data.
It doesn't surprise me that I say Data, though, because I also say Gala.
I used to say Gala or Gala, but now I say Gala.
Yeah. And everybody at my current job says Gala, so I'm like the weird one. But so we went to, and I laugh because we did like kayaking, and we went in tide pools along the Oregon coast. We went to the Tillamook factory and did like an ice cream tasting experience. It was super fun. I highly recommend it. But the highlight of my daughter's trip, she will tell you, is the like 5 minutes we spent at the Goonies house in Astoria.
She did tell me just now.
Yeah. It's her favorite. She loves it.
Yeah.
It was fun.
The only reason I thought of the Data thing was because I work in data, and like honestly, just like a few days ago, I was reading something about like why do we say data or data, and there was like some, I don't know,
there like
some social media post or something. I think it's like British versus American, or like not even that, but it's like something like some regional something dialect, whatever.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Anyway, sorry not to steal your thunder of your vacation story.
I mean, that was pretty much it. Yeah. It was pretty cool. I do highly recommend the Oregon coast. It's beautiful.
I know. It would be fun.
Especially depending on like what kind of vibe you're looking for, but it's like beautiful because the forest like touches the sea. Like it is here, it's like beach, ocean in Southern California, let me clarify. Here in Southern California, it's just like beach, city.
Mountains.
In the distance.
Eventually.
Yeah. And so it doesn't have as much of like a nature vibe. I don't know how you feel. I don't feel like SoCal is super naturey.
It's very concrete jungle out here.
Yes.
But, your sound is on there.
Yeah, it sure is.
Sorry about that. I noticed it at lunch, and then I didn't say it, and then I came in here and I was like, I was gonna say it, and then I forgot, and then here we are. It's the story of us.
I just got a text message from my sister. Shout out to my sister. You just text messaged me.
Oh, hey.
Now I'll have to leave it into the recording. But anyways, yeah, so it was beautiful. Highly recommend it, but it is very like naturey, it was a nice change of pace. I did take for granted how small Rockaway Beach was going to be. like I should have anticipated, but it was like we get to our Airbnb
Mm-hmm.
and we check in and get in. Airbnb, I went through Verbo, but
Kleenex facial tissue.
I know, right? What do they call them? Short-term rentals?
Yeah.
What's the actual
I think
term
it's like
for 'em?
short-term rentals.
Yeah. Anyways,
But
I
anyway.
digress. I went to look to see where the nearest grocery store was,
Mhm.
assuming that there would be like a Safeway or something.
Yeah.
No, it was like the local market,
Mm-hmm.
or like 30 minutes away was a Safeway down in like Tillamook.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna try this grocery store and see if they. And it was like the size of a gas station market, but it did have all of the basic grocery necessities.
I was actually wondering, because you called me
Yes.
when you were like on the way, and I was like, just try the little market, because if you can get everything there, then you don't have to go.
Yes.
I
I didn't have a lot of selection.
Yeah.
But it had everything.
Good.
So I was happy. So I was able to get all my groceries.
At least you got what
for
you
this
needed.
trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really, I highly recommend it.
Good.
But
Fun.
there was a really, it's totally random. There was a really fun, like, gift shop
Mm-hmm.
that's in Rockaway Beach that's so kitschy. It's all full of like cheap souvenirs. But it was so cute, and it was called Flamingo Gems.
That's so cute.
And if I remember, I'll post a picture on probably on my Instagram, of me with like, they have like a photo op that has 2 pink flamingo wings where you can stand in front of.
Mm-hmm.
And then my daughter took it, which I won't post, sorry. A picture of my daughter inside a shark's mouth
Mm-hmm.
painting thing.
Cute.
So it was like super kitschy, and so my
Yeah.
sister, my daughter got like a Flamingo Gems like sweatshirt, and I got a sticker to put on my water bottle, and
Cute.
it was fun.
My mom calls me her sister's name, so you're getting there. You're getting there.
Sometimes it is like going through the whole line of people who live in the house, including the cats.
Yeah. Tracy. She called me the dog's name once, and that was unacceptable.
I call the 2 of them, my husband and my daughter, the cat's names all the time.
Cat, I feel like, is different than the dog.
Well, sometimes it's like, especially when you're yelling out a name, it's the animal's name.
Yeah.
Because they're doing something, and you're like, like, Pearl, don't do that. Don't scratch the stairs. Don't. And so when they're doing something that's like, I need to respond really quick, it's like, Pearl will just pop out of my mouth.
Pearl husband. My dad said that his dad used to just call all 3 of them, no matter who he wanted. Nancy Jack Jane.
Whoever
answers first, or they would all come up and he'd be like, "You, I want you." But speaking of cat. Meow. Cat.
Katerina.
Meow.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah.
If you don't know already, that should lead. If you probably do,
because you clicked on the episode.
Yeah.
But we are talking about 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes.
Starring Kat Stratford. Well, starring
Julia Stiles
as Kat Stratford.
Yes.
So yeah, let's just go right into it.
Yeah.
So 10 Things I Hate About You was released in March of 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Production from Touchstone Pictures, Mad Chance, and Jarrett Entertainment, and distributed by Buena Vista Pictures. Directed by Jill Junger. Sorry. Written by Karen McCullough, Kirsten Smith, and based on The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. Produced by Andrew Lazar, and starring Julia Stiles, Heath Ledger, Larissa Olenek. Is that how you say her name? Olenek?
I think it's like Olenek, but I was too
Alex
old for
Mack.
Alex Mack. It was just because
That was exactly my age.
too old for it. The only reason I know about Alex Mack is because one of my sorority sisters in college knew about Alex Mack, but she also had a younger sister.
Yeah.
Still has. They're both alive.
Yeah. Also starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Larry Miller, Andrew Keegan, Allison Janney, David Krumholtz, and Susan May Pratt. Who I love
You don't
from
have
Center
you didn't have the feet. I don't have the heart. I love Center Stage.
Yes. We'll have to add that one to the list. Is it on the list?
It probably is.
It's
There was
gotta
something else
be.
that I was thinking about last night too that we need to add, but I can't remember what it is. And it was such a good one.
Yeah. All right. So 10 Things I Hate About You is a teen comedy based on The Taming of the Shrew, which, if you don't know, follows sisters Caterina and Bianca in the city of Padua. Their father refuses to let younger Bianca marry until shrewish Caterina marries. Lucentio loves Bianca and convinces the eccentric Petruchio to marry Caterina, and he uses a number of tactics to make her an obedient wife. And I think it was important to summarize the source material in this case.
Yes.
And this retelling is set in Seattle at the fictional Padua High School, where the Stratford sisters' overprotective father sets the rule that popular Bianca can't date unless tempestuous Cat does. Or heinous bitch, depending on who you're asking. New student Cameron is so smitten with Bianca that he and his new friend Michael convince vapid boy model Joey, who also has eyes on Bianca, to pay bad boy Patrick Verona, which is a nod to the Shakespearean character, to date I don't need to go into that, to date Cat. Hijinks ensue, but through it all, Patrick begins to have real feelings for Cat. You can watch it on regular subscriptions for Hulu, Disney+, Fubo TV, or with premium subscriptions to YouTube TV, Sling TV, or rent it from YouTube, Amazon Prime, or Apple TV.
Yeah. Just fair warning, if you have Disney+, but you don't have Hulu, you won't be able to watch it because you have to have the Hulu subscription.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
I watched it on Hulu, which also there's commercials.
Yeah.
So.
You have to have the Hulu subscription like through Disney, because I have a Hulu subscription, but not through Disney, because like I did the annual Disney Plus subscription before it did all the bundling.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't want ESPN, so I was like, why am I going to pay more for a bundle of things that I don't want?
I did it all for free through my cell phone.
Yeah, I get HBO, I get Max for free through mine.
Nice.
Because AT&T.
Prison.
But yeah, so just fair warning, it's really just Hulu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it'll show up on Disney Plus, which is annoying. Anyway.
When did you first see it?
I'm pretty sure the theater.
Yeah. So in 1999.
Yeah. And then forever, it was like on our Blockbuster Hollywood Video rental when I was in college.
Yeah.
We would just rent it all the time.
Yeah.
Or and I think finally like somebody bought it. I have it on VHS.
Same. Well, no, I have it on DVD. I did have it on VHS.
I may also have it on DVD.
I definitely have it on DVD.
Yeah, I definitely had it on VHS. I think I may also have it on DVD, because like at some point you started to have to buy all of your everything you had on VHS on DVD.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've seen this movie like a billion times.
Same.
Yeah.
So this is one of those movies that I actually have a super clear memory of seeing for the first time.
Yeah.
Like I'm always like, oh, I guess I must have seen it here.
Yeah.
So I saw it in Denver when I was visiting my sister. So at the time, I was living in Washington with our dad, and she was living in Denver with our mom. And so I always visited in the summer, and so me and my sister went and saw it at a theater. But it was during the summer, so it must have been one of those like, well, the movies used to stay in the theater for way longer.
Yeah, there were fewer movies. They stayed in the theater for longer. Yeah. Because
it would have been like a couple months at least after it released.
Yeah.
But anyways, and I even remember, like, we went to the theater, but either right before or right after, we went into like a Claire's or something similar, and I got those like plastic bracelets that were all the different colors that were super popular at the time, and you could like fold them on each other to make
like a jelly bracelet.
Yes.
That I remember
like
those
really
having a resurgence.
Super skinny.
I remember them having a resurgence because they were so big in the 80s, like when I was like in first and second grade.
Yeah, and then they had a huge resurgence in like
almost
the very
before
late
you
90s.
were born.
Yeah. And so I remember buying like a set of them.
Yeah.
And probably something else, I have no idea. But like I just remember those bracelets, and I wore them all the time. I wore them all through middle school. Because 1999, that would have been the very end of middle school.
Yeah, because you fold them in half on each other and make a little like loopy one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I very much remember seeing that movie. I remember like how I felt in the theater, and I remember like it's so this is like it's like one of those weird core memories for me. And then I remember like another summer my mom had moved at that time, and we lived like across the street from, I think it was either a Hollywood Video or a Blockbuster. And so one summer when I rented 10 Things I Hate About You, and I think I watched it back, like, just on loop for like a full day. Like, all
Your
I watched
mom was probably like,
10
turn that movie off.
No, she was at work.
Oh, fair.
This was me, like,
that's
entertaining myself in between.
That's like that summer that I've talked about where we were I was with my dad, but we were house sitting for one of his friends, and they had like 4 videotapes, and I watched all those movies over and over again.
Because I watched that, and then I went back, returned that, and got Never Been Kissed, and watched that on loop.
I don't think I saw Never Been Kissed but maybe I did. I don't know. That was one of those ones that came out when I was in college, and like, Lord,
I don't know that I saw it in theaters, but I definitely saw it on loop from a rental over and over again.
That's one we should do.
Yes. But 10 Things I Hate About You, like, man, that was like, it was like a defining movie for me at that time. It was like my Clueless.
I'm not Josie Grossi anymore. I think I've only seen it like twice, actually.
Not Never Been Kissed. 10 Things was like a movie.
10 Things, yes. I was talking about Never Been Kissed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway.
Yeah. So it's hard for me. This is one of those movies that even though I see the issues, it's hard for me because it's such a core movie for me. Especially, like, it's so quotable.
Yeah,
like, as
it really is.
I started to write quotes and I kind of gave up because I was like...
Every line is a quote.
Yes. And it was very well written. Like,
it really
was. Language and the verbiage and, like, just the little quips.
Unwash my screens. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones that for me, like, I loved it. And I've always loved it, but I don't feel the same way that you feel about it. But, and I haven't watched it in years.
Yeah.
And so coming back now, so I think for both of us, maybe especially me, our master's program, because I did it later. Our master's program was such like a transitional kind of like worldview changing experience for me, where things that I did before, like pre-masters and post-masters, are very just like, I have like such a different view of them. So like, it was one that I don't think I had watched since before I did our masters.
Oh, okay.
And so our masters, like we share one, but I think it was
same masters.
Yeah, but I think it was something that I hadn't watched since before I did my masters, and so then watching it now after, I'm like just more aware of what I'm consuming. I think because of some of the classes that we took and some of the discussions that came up, and also like. I think like post BLM, post like 2020, 2016, like everything changes. And I don't even know if I watched it since like 2016 even.
Yeah.
And that's when I started the master's program anyway.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of stuff that like if I haven't seen it since, it hits me different when I'm watching it for the first time in preparation for the podcast.
Sure. Yeah.
And then there's stuff when I've never seen it and we're watching it in preparation for,
Yeah.
It's like, I just view differently than I used to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, I think, well, the master's program that we did hadn't reached the level that it had by the time that you were in it.
I was just going to say, you were in the first class.
First class.
Yeah. And I came into it, like, it had been going on for a few years at that point. Things were refining and changing, and
it was great. It wasn't as intersectional as by the time you got there. And so while we were asking a lot of questions and talking about like transformative leadership and being like more socially conscious and socially aware, social justice came up a lot, but it was dominated from a white lens.
I think also the world was in a different place. Like
I
started in 2016.
Yeah, I graduated in 2014.
I started in January 2016. That was the year of like Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump in the presidential election.
Yeah.
Then like 2 years later was not 2 years later, but then like you know a year later we have like the inauguration of, and and like all these things were like
we hadn't
the
even
world,
hit the Me Too unit.
We
movement when I was in it.
Yeah, and like all of these things. So all of these conversations were starting to come to the forefront. I think like globally.
Yeah.
While I was in the program.
Yeah.
So I think that's also part of it.
Yeah, and for me, I think my like transition in the way I think about things and view things and how I'm critical of things has been such a gradual journey.
Yeah.
You know, it really started when I moved here in 2004, thinking I was a Republican, and then getting here, and the first movie that I saw in the theater was with my aunt. She took me to Fahrenheit 9/11.
Oh my God.
And that was kind of like life altering. But even then, like, I didn't really understand where I stood politically because I didn't really understand politics. I didn't understand politicians. I really hadn't been. Most of my family are all very apolitical, so it just, I wasn't exposed to it at all until I came here, and now I'm in, you know, Southern California and Orange County, where things are a little more heated because of the fact that it is a more purple, traditionally red, now more purple.
Way more purple than people imagine.
And so it's a very polarizing place to live, I think.
I think it is more so than even in LA, because like LA is so much more blue consistently. There are red areas in LA, which will surprise you. Yeah. I mean, and everyone will think it's like Beverly Hills, but it's also like Burbank. You know. So yeah, I think here it's way more swingy, and so you get a lot more like activity around those times. Yeah.
So it's built.
So it's
over a lot of time. It's built, and I've progressed and learned more and unlearned even more. You know, I mean, things that I used to say, I like cringe now, but I mean, I used to have the mindset of like, well, if they move to the United States, they need to speak our language, because if I move to Mexico, I should speak Spanish. But I'm like, there's so many problems with that way of thinking. But in my mind back then, it was like, oh no, like, I'm not being unfair, I'm being this, but it's like, now I know better. It's
all that bias that we have that we don't know about, right? It's like asking a fish about water.
Yes.
It's like asking a person about racism is like asking a fish about water. Like, but
so all this to say, like, it's been a much more, so like I got, and the master's program, it did change me. Our friendship has changed me. Yeah. And I've learned more. And then 2016, 2020, it's just been
a wild ride.
Yes. And so now I'm more comfortable and more confident. But I think I have a hard time being very critical of the things that are so core, even though I know I need to.
I mean, it's hard to be, and look, we don't always have to be critical of everything all the time, right? I mean, this is just where we are right now because we're talking about it for the podcast, like, for the purposes of this.
The point of the podcast.
So it's like, I don't really think about it much beyond this conversation, and then tomorrow I'm gonna be like, well, whatever, I'm over it. You know what I mean? So we're not like trying to like destroy everyone's youth.
Yeah. Oh, I am.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
Well, that was the secret part of the podcast. Make everyone really unhappy all the time.
You're never going to enjoy anything from your childhood ever
again. But I think too, like, where you have not always been political, like, I have always been, like, I mean, not I've always been political, but politics has always been a part of my life. My parents have always been voters and always been, like, into, you know, especially my dad is, like, super into politics. And I mean, in school, like, I think part of it is growing up on a military basis too. Like, you're a little more aware. You have to be a little more aware because the president is going to decide what your parents do, you know. And so parents are more soldiers are more involved. So like,
well, just by nature of being more global.
Yeah,
and you are in a foreign country.
You're living in a foreign country a lot of times. I mean, a lot of people on military bases still live in the United States too, but you know, for those of us who were overseas, like, it's just very different. And I mean, I remember in the 1992 election, it was like Bill Clinton, Ross Perot, and George W. Oh, I don't remember. George W. Bush. No, not George W. Bush. George Bush. I was 12, and so I couldn't vote, but we had like an election in school. One of our projects was to, like, every week we had to like keep this like notebook of, and the only reason I remember this is because going through all of my stuff when I was a kid, from when I was a kid, just like a few years ago, I found my project. And we had to like talk about the election. And yes, it was Bush, Perot, and Clinton, because Bush was a one-term president.
Yeah, but Bush Sr.
Bush Sr., yes. George Herschel Walker
I do remember him not being elected for a second term. I don't remember, I feel like it was just mentioned. Yeah. In passing. I was even younger though. I would have been like, what, like 6? Yeah.
I was like, were you even in school at that point?
6 or 7, yeah, no.
Yeah, so I was gonna say also, like, I think generationally, it's different, because like, even though I am young Gen X, like, I'm almost at the end of Gen X, like, Gen X I think was a much more like activist generation than the I don't want to say like the elder millennial, because like now you are, but it was like I think we grew up in a more politically active time, right? Because that was like when we first started talking about global warming, when we first started talking about like all these other things that not necessarily were about social justice, but were about like we are way off on a tangent.
I think that's okay though, because I want to continue. Well, but, and just to say that like I feel like growing up in the 90s and having that be such a formative part of my life, the 90s were problematic for so many ways, because I feel like so many people thought they were being like anti-racist or but they really weren't. And so it's like we thought we had come so far when really we had. Now we're learning as elder millennials that we really didn't. And like we'll talk about this next week on Moxie, spoiler, and maybe I'll bring it up again of like the mom talking about her past, and it's like, well, we thought we were doing a good job, but there was a lot of problems with how we did it.
It's so funny, and I'm gonna say it again the next episode, but like I was watching Moxie and I was like, oh, that's me as a mom. You know what I mean?
Right?
Like. And yes, Amy Poehler's a little bit older than me. Her character is a little bit older than me, but like, or than I would have been at that time. But that it is that idea of like, you know, all the stuff she's talking about. I was like, I grew up in that time too. You know what I mean? Like I was, you know, we're not that far apart, but we are in some ways, right? And so,
I mean, I grew up in the time of like, that's so gay.
Yeah. And I was in college for that.
Yeah.
You know, where it was like, I had a friend who said it and I was just like,
that seems wrong.
Feels wrong a little.
So it's like we thought we were being
but
progressive, but
so what I was going to say to all of that was like, I think the split is like when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, you were growing up in the 90s and 2000s, and there is something that I'm going to talk about later in this episode, but there's a Time magazine has an excerpt of a book, but the excerpt is titled How the 90s Tricked Women into Thinking They Gained Gender Equality. And I think that right there, just that title is a lot of the difference between us.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you grew up in a time thinking like, we're equal, everything's fine, we're good. And I was older in that turn where it's like, we were part of the problem and we bought into it, but like, I think there was always that underbelly of like,
knowing
is this
better.
right? Is this, you know? And I think that's second wave feminism in a nutshell, you know, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we have this, like,
yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk more about
it. Because it's all the context of, like, how we view this movie.
Yeah.
And, like, why we come at it, like, a little differently.
From such different, It's, like, why Clueless hits different for both of us. It's why, like...
Like, it's a great movie and it's in love. It's one of my favorite movies, but it doesn't hit me like it hits you.
Yeah, exactly. Or, like, Mean Girls, even.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, in Mean Girls, I wish I had let myself be more critical. And I think that's why, like, for this movie, like, I want to let myself be more critical. Because it's like, I'm almost afraid. I try to excuse things that aren't right because I want it to be a good movie.
Well, and I think it's natural to be defensive of the things that you love and protective of them.
And it's like, we keep saying it and we'll say it again, but, like, we can be critical of the things we love.
Yes.
So let's be a little critical.
Yeah.
Although, can we just say that Miss Perky's romance novel is the best part of the movie?
It is, but also my first sentence is I forgot how inappropriate Allison Janney's character is, even though I love her.
Yes. Robbie member.
Turgid. Tumescent?
Perfect.
One of my big takeaways, I think, was, and it was in the very beginning because it's my second note, is that Kat feels like this feminist archetype. She doesn't feel like an actual feminist to me.
Well, and a lot of it's interesting that you say that because a lot of the criticism I read after watching the movie again was accusing the character of Kat as being a performative feminist.
Yeah, and I think that ties, like, right, because I wrote, feels like a feminist archetype more than an actual feminist, very 2001. I mean, she's not wrong, but I think that ties into the how the 90s tricked women piece because the whole time, like, everyone calls Kat a bitch and you know, and a shrew and a horrible person, and she we're supposed to believe that she's actually not, that she's just a like, well, maybe we're not, maybe I don't know if we're supposed to believe that or not, right? Or are we supposed to believe that feminists are shrewy kind of women? Because that was the take in the 80s and the 90s and into the early 2000s, right? But and Alison Yarrow, or Yarrow, I'm not sure, but she is the one who wrote the book and where the excerpt is taken from. And she said, I call what was done to women in the 90s bitchification. And I actually found this article while researching for what is coming, not next episode, but the episode after the next one. But I think that this episode and the next two really all tie together in this really neat kind of way that I think, you know, like my dissertation will be at the end of the third of the series of episodes.
Stay tuned.
But I think it really, this article, and I think we're actually going to do the book at some point in the future, so stick around. But it's called 90s Bitch, and then there's like a colon after, you know, a rest of the title. But it's by Alison Yarrow, and one of the quotes is, parody was a paradox. The more women assumed power, the more power was taken from them through a noxious popular culture that celebrated outright hostility toward women and commercialized their sexuality and their insecurity. And I think that is what happens in like 2001.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's when this commercialization of femininity starts. And so you have to be, and then we get into like the Britney, Paris, things that we've talked about like back in season 1 of the podcast, where it's this idea of like, it was like the precursor to sex positivity, right? Was just like outright promiscuity, and that was somehow feminist, right? And so, and then it's also that patriarchal capitalization on feminism, right? So anyway, but yes.
Yeah. Well, and so considering that I feel like I'm dressed much more like Bianca today.
Well, I feel like this is us in a nutshell.
It is now.
Yeah, you're the Bianca to my cat.
100%.
You are the
Bianca and cat at the end of the movie when we like each other.
Yeah. You're the well, you're not. I was gonna say anyway.
Yeah.
Nothing.
But like to me, when I saw that movie, I remember seeing Kat as like everything I wanted to be, because she seemed so cool and aloof and like that she just doesn't care. And I could never be her because I cared too much about what people thought about me. But then like now as an adult looking at her, it's like how many things that she limited in herself because she thought that people would expect her to do it, so she didn't do it.
Because her friend wanted to go to the prom.
And she like poo-pooed on it.
And I loved when she was like,
we're making a stand.
Oh, something new and different for us. You know, like, woo. Well, when Kat was like, who would want to go? And she's like, me. I want to. Like, it could be fun, you know? And not everything has to be.
Yeah. But she did see that at the end. And
yes.
And when she's like, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And so that my sister can go. And she was having a good time.
Yeah. Well, I do love the argument, too, of like, well, people expect you not to go.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like the whole idea of like, I'm only going to do things that people don't want me to do or don't want to expect it. It's like, but it's like, what about doing things that you just enjoy doing?
You just want to do.
Whether they're what people expect or not, whether they're girly or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, she still just like exuded this like, I'm going to say what needs to be said. My favorite is like, I don't even have it written down, but I could just say it like when they were talking about Hemingway, like, please, he was an abusive alcoholic misogynist who spent half his life hanging around Picasso trying to nail his leftovers.
Yeah.
I could quote this movie almost as much as Clueless.
Well, and I mean, and the thing is, like, she's not wrong.
She isn't wrong. She's not wrong.
But it's that, again, it's that like feminazi bitch archetype, right? Of like how all any woman who had self-confidence, a sense of self-worth, a sense of self-ownership, and was intelligent and not afraid to speak her mind was labeled a bitch.
Yes.
And here we are, you know. And in the 70s, it was the C word. And like, you know, it's just all of that hatred towards powerful women. But also, the way that this character is written, she kind of earns it. Yeah. You know?
Well, she is kind of a one-dimensional feminist.
Yeah.
And she's been accused of being a white feminist. Yeah. She's not very intersectional. Even the English teacher in that same thing.
Oh my God, I love the English.
She brings in like Sylvia Plath and everything. It's like,
or how about a black man?
But the way he says it, because the way this
he's
movie
so
is
good.
Written, well, the way the movie is written, the lines are so
quotable.
Perfectly executed. Of like take your like PTA like white mom like whatever it is you just care about.
Yes.
And ask them, like, why they won't sign a book written by a black man.
Exactly.
I wish I'd written that one down because,
it's so good.
He did say, too, and I loved this.
Yeah.
I know how difficult it must be for you to overcome all those years of upper middle class suburban oppression.
I love him.
Must be tough.
I even wrote, I love the English teacher, Mr. Morgan. Also, he's also, or I said, I love the English teacher, Mr. Morgan. He's also not wrong. It's right under my note of, I mean, she's not wrong.
Yeah.
But I love him, and watching it now, whereas Alice and Janney used to be my favorite character, now he is my favorite character. I mean, Alice and Janney I will love forever.
Yes.
Did I just touch? No, I touched my shirt.
I've bumped the mic like 4 times, so my apologies to everybody.
But I will say that, so when you were talking about one-dimensional feminist, her being a one-dimensional feminist, and like this is how I felt, especially when they're on the swings and she's telling him why she is the way she is. She's like, I don't want to do anything anyone expects of me. I said her convictions come from a reaction to what happened, not really from herself, and maybe that's why they feel inauthentic.
Yeah,
because she's just trying to rage against something versus like, I don't want to go to the prom.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I shouldn't want to go to the prom.
Yeah.
Because like everybody does that.
Yeah.
And that's my hard time with all those like alt kids who like think they're being so unique, and I'm like, no, you're just being a contrarian like everyone else. You
can't see it on the recording, but I'm raising my hand. Guilty.
Yeah, because
like, all my years of like, I'm not listening to Britney Spears. I'm too cool for that.
Literally just gonna say Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say this question. Did all teen movies in the late 90s, early 2000s start with a tour of the campus pointing out the cliques?
Yes.
Because that's how we start this movie too.
Yep.
Also Clueless. Also Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Like, what were we doing?
They didn't do it in Never Been Kissed.
I don't remember that movie because I've only seen it like once or twice. But I'm just yeah. I also don't think of Never Been Kissed as really like a teen movie because she's older. It's really about her. I don't think of it as
her and the teacher.
Yeah, I don't think of it as a teen movie.
True story. There's just teens in it.
Yeah.
It's an adult movie that takes place in high school.
Disco Barbie.
And I'm evening gown Barbie.
I really want that Peaches and Cream Barbie dress. It's on back order right now.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I will say, like, this doesn't have anything to do with anything we just talked about. This soundtrack really hits.
It's really good. I've had Cruel to Be Kind stuck in my head since I watched it.
Well, and what did I write down? That Letters to Cleo unlocks so much nostalgia in me. It takes me back to plastic bracelets and butterfly clips. Oh. It's just like one of those bands that just, and it's one of the that I forget about all the time. And then suddenly I hear the song and I'm just like transported back to like a whole nother time and mindset. Yeah. And so the whole soundtrack feels that way, but especially the 2 Letters to Cleo songs that are in there, which are Cruel to Be Kind and I Want You to Want Me. Yes. In case you didn't know.
Yes.
But even like Say Ferris, I love that band too.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Also, I will say Bikini Kill is a theme throughout the next 3 episodes too, because she listens to it in this movie, and then they talk about it. It inspires everything in Moxie, which is what we're talking about next. And then the Spice Girls are like the antithesis, like the antithesis of Bikini Kill. But anyway, which is what we're talking about third. But anyway, my notes are very obviously like stream of consciousness as I'm watching the movie.
Oh, and so are mine.
Was Gabrielle Union in every teen movie? Of course there was a bet. Was I a stupid bet, Zach? And then little cult leader Andrew Keegan.
Oh man, Andrew Keegan.
Isn't it? He has a cult now. If you didn't know, go Google it. Yes, he has a cult, like in Venice. I mean, I don't know if it's still active, but like a couple of years ago, like that was the thing.
Really?
He had a cult. He started a cult.
He was not my favorite of all the Keegan brothers.
There were Keegan brothers.
Weren't there more than one?
Oh, I think there was like a Joe Keegan or something.
Joey Keegan. Wasn't one of them in Boy Meets World?
I don't know. I was too old for Boy Meets World too. Actually, I wasn't too old for Boy Meets World because I had a friend who watched Boy Meets World, but I didn't watch Boy Meets World.
There is 100%. We're gonna look this up because why not?
Yep.
Keegan brothers.
I mean, I believe that there are. I just don't know who they are.
It's ruined because there's a Keegan Brothers Auto Parts.
It's probably them though. Is it in LA?
All right, well, that's about all I can do right now,
Yeah.
but yes, apparently that's a thing.
And then I also said young JGL kind of sounds like Steve Buscemi.
JGL?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh.
His voice kind of sounds like Steve Buscemi at some points. And then I said, ugh, the R word. Ugh, a PMS joke. It kind of irritates me that JGL gets the girl.
Mm-hmm.
JGL and Heath Ledger look so much alike. Such weird purity culture from the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Why does she flash her teacher?
Oh my God.
All caps.
Seriously, why?
Yeah.
But no, that is one of the things about this movie that doesn't translate well. That scene also, but like the language, as far as like the words that they like using the R word and like some of the really off-color jokes, and just things that we wouldn't. They seemed so small back then.
It was the time.
Yeah.
It was like calling things gay.
But it does like totally. It stands out.
Yeah. And now it does. Like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was the time. But
you know what
go ahead.
Also on the note of like the weird purity father and like the behavior,
so weird.
Like, so Bianca couldn't go to the party with her friend, but Kat could go to like a bar to see a band with her friend, and that was okay. Because it's like, is it any interaction with boys?
Mm-hmm.
Was it because that was a female-dominated like audience that Kat could go, but that Bianca couldn't go to a party because she wasn't going on a date?
Yeah.
She wasn't. I mean, she was.
I bet the boys
outwardly.
are the factor.
The fact that more boys.
It's like in The West Wing when Charlie wants to date Zoe, the president's daughter, or the president's daughter, and he's like, Charlie, you know when I said I didn't want you to date Zoe, it wasn't because you're black, right? And he was like, no, I figured it was because I'm a guy. But yeah, the purity culture thing was so weird.
Yeah.
From Paolo, the guy who did
from Princess
Diaries, like whole makeup. Isn't that his name?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I was like, sir.
Pablo?
I think it was Paolo, but I don't know. Anyway, but I was just like, that image was in my head. But I was like, this is such a weird thing for the dad to be so weird about.
Yeah. Well, they try to explain it because he's an obstetrician who apparently only delivers babies to teenagers.
I'm just like, what is happening?
Like, is that just like, is that like the clinic that he works in, or like why is it predominantly young women?
What's going on?
But I loved his quote. What's normal? Those damn Dawson's River kids sleeping in each other's beds and whatnot.
Oh, Dawson's Creek. That started my first year of college, and so that was like the thing. Dawson was like the thing that we all
Dawson.
did.
I never did. I always liked Pacey.
I was always a Pacey girl.
Who wasn't? Nobody liked Dawson. He was so whiny. the meme of him like crying.
Which is hilarious because James Vanderbeek is actually like really sarcastic and hilarious and like, yeah.
I guess that shows he's such a good actor.
Well, also he was a kid then. He's an adult now, you know.
Like, I also wrote down, kissing isn't what keeps me up to my elbows in placenta all day long. So
gross. But also then you just think like elbows. That's all I can think is like. Yeah. I think something that we talked about on the phone, and I was like, don't take my quote. I think
let's talk about that now. But I think it's a long quote.
Because I do think it's like the origin.
Yes.
Like the source material is the problem, not necessarily. Because I watched it thinking it was written by a man, and then you told me like no, it was a woman. It was women, and then I was like, well,
I'm assuming based on the names.
Yeah, and then we were like, well, it is based on Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah.
And I said, Shakespeare is always the problem.
Yep. I mean, it's incredibly, and that's why I included some of the summary.
Yeah.
And the summary of this, because to understand this movie, you really have to, how sexist that movie is. So on this, I have kind of a long quote, and we'll link the article. It's from something called The Swaddle, but it had a really interesting take, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. I skipped something because I hand wrote it, and I didn't want to write the whole damn thing. The thing about sexist works of literature for a Hollywood audience is that any improvement feels like a big improvement. So it explains kind of why I am willing to overlook it, because compared to the source material, where he basically bullies Kat into being this obedient wife.
Mm-hmm.
The intent and action aside, the movie has a cultural life of its own and deserves scrutiny. To that effect, here's why I'm on board with the imperfections of the movie. Julia Stiles' Kat is a feminist. She's also angry. The devil-may-care attitude sits resiliently within her. She has a right to be angry, as someone who has decades worth of internal misogyny within her. Kat hates her sister for being feminine and too girly, and thus Kat's feminism is not perfect. But the movie spotlights it without tilting the scale against her. While the 90s feminist is still very much a pawn of the system, she is still someone conscious of the social roles she operates within. The friction is hard to miss. Her feminism is flawed, but strong, something that resonates decades later. And I'm like, that really encapsulated how I felt of like, I'm so willing to overlook it because it is so much better than the Shakespearean work, but it still is imperfect.
Yeah. I think, and I mean, when I say, like, I watched it and, like, saw all the, felt completely differently about it, I'm not going to be, like, protesting and, you know, carrying it around with me, you know? Like, ban it. I still love the movie. It's still super fun and whatever, and Heath Ledger and, you know.
Yeah. Oh my God, Heath Ledger singing is a core memory.
It's so good. I really just keep thinking about Not Another Teen Movie and all the scenes that are exactly the same as like every teen movie. And this is one of those movies that is like roped into all that.
Yeah. It is. It's just such a I just loved it. It was like, and for me, because I was younger in the characters, it felt like something that I could like almost like aspire to. Like I wanted that high school experience.
Yeah.
I did not have that high school experience. Spoiler.
I don't think anyone did.
But it felt edgy but fun. And it was, I mean, God, Heath Ledger was so hot in that movie. It really kickstarted my like Aussie craze.
Oh, Heath Ledger.
The whole Aussie craze.
It kickstarted Heath Ledger craze too.
Oh man. He was a good looking dude.
R.I.P.
I know.
It's a shame. Anyway, let's not get down too far that
I know. I did say too, one of the things that I hit on, kind of on this same like the kind of issues, it's like that it was so manipulative what the boys were doing, but it somehow didn't bother me or offend me because it still felt like the women had the power.
At the end of the day, yeah, I mean, like, I wrote my note about I'm kind of irritated that Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets the girl, and I wrote that like in kind of like the second third of the movie, but by the end, like I like it better. I'm okay with it more because she's kind of like, no, I choose you. You're wrong, and you know, and also she kind of put him up to it. You know, but I
mean, she was kind of manipulative too.
She was super manipulative. Yeah. And I think that's the juxtaposition of her and Kat too, right? Is like Kat is like stalwart, straightforward feminist, wants no pretense, no illusion about anything. And Bianca is that hyper feminine, has to be the neck turning the head whichever way she wants, and like has to like manipulate the men into doing what she wants them to do because she doesn't have any real you know, because that's the only place she has power versus like Kat, who's like, I'm gonna tell you what I want from you. You know. But yeah.
And I think maybe that's why I liked Bianca. Well, Kat was just so much more exciting. Bianca was fun. She was fine. She wasn't fun. She was fine.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about chastity now. Like,
oh, yes. Can we talk about that random turn of, like, it was like you turned the page and she was an entirely different person.
Right?
I'm like, was this supposed to be a different character that then they just like didn't have the budget and cut it down to one?
She was like, just like Bianca, like, can you ever just be whelmed?
Yeah, that's how she starts.
Like, just, you can be underwhelmed and you can be overwhelmed. Can you ever just be whelmed?
And then she turns into like
a total
mean person.
Why?
Like,
what was her motivation? Just because she wanted to date Joey?
She never even wanted to date him in the first place. Like, all of a sudden you do now that Bianca has to go home after the party and can't go to the after party. So now you're going to, like, jump in his ride and, like, it was just there was no, I wonder what ended up on the cutting room floor because, like, there was no there was no lead up to that payoff, and so it felt unearned.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't.
Especially like you get to the scene in the bathroom and it feels so like that's supposed to be your best friend.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you thought you were the only sophomore.
I know you didn't think you were going to be the only sophomore at the dance, and it's like, why wouldn't she?
And then like,
that?
oh, and by the way, Joy was going to nail you. Like.
Yeah.
Not like. You totally dodged a bullet. He was going to try to nail you tonight.
And what do you think is going to happen to you, girlfriend?
Right? What do you think he brought you for?
So weird.
It was like, so does Bianca not have a friend?
And it was just so weird. Because the whole thing was like them conspiring to get him to go on a date with her.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. And like I said, I wonder what got edited out because maybe there was something else that was just, but it just felt like it was like I turned the page and it was a totally different person that we were talking about, you know?
Maybe they forgot who they were writing and just like digressed.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can we talk about Julia Stiles dancing on the table?
Oh, yes. I can like hear the music in my head.
Biggie, can't you see? Oh my god, that was just hilarious. And then I just thought about Save the Last Dance.
She was a better dancer in this movie than in Save the Last Dance.
Save the Last Dance.
Whenever I see clips of people like redoing that dance and how like basic it really is.
You know what is so funny? Okay, so the choreographer, I think Fatima Robinson, she also choreographed a video for the Backstreet Boys. Or maybe multiple videos, but the choreography that Julia Stiles does in her like audition is also in As Long As You Love Me.
Oh my god, I'm gonna listen.
It's the exact same choreography. I'm gonna watch that video
now and see it in a totally new light.
It's not the whole, like her whole dance isn't in there, but the part with the chair. And the little like point thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same choreography. So
oh my god, I'm gonna find that.
I caught you. But yeah.
But yeah.
So overall, still love the movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's a product of its time. It's a product of that like patriarchal view of feminism. And that's not anyone involved's fault. It's just it is what it is. It's the time that it was made. It's the source material.
Yeah.
Damn you, Shakespeare.
Oh man. Well, you know what's funny, for as problematic as Shakespeare was, like I still have fond memories of reading Shakespeare too.
You know, as a theater major, I always felt like I was supposed to love Shakespeare.
And you just didn't?
And so like I like bought all the, you know, I have like a whole, but at the time there were like this paperback book company that would do like all the Shakespeare plays, and so they have all very similar covers and they're the same size and the same shape and whatever, and like they have the same look. Were they kind
of like a pastel-y looking color?
No, they were more like jewel tones, I think.
Okay.
But anyway, whatever. I mean, maybe, but I think it was just like jewel tones and whatever it was. But so I have like all of these like plays, and you know, I have some of the sonnets, but like I never actually like. I thought I was supposed to like him, and I thought I was, you know. I mean, and I like some things, right? Yeah. Like I liked, I like Midsummer Night's Dream. I like Macbeth. You know, there are things that I do like, but I thought I was supposed to like. I thought it was supposed to be like the be all and end all of theater and acting is Shakespeare, and I don't really enjoy.
I love a good adaptation.
Yeah,
some of them.
Sure.
I guess.
Well, and I think too, like around the same time, again, like you know, like a few years earlier, it was like Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, and so then everyone got real into Shakespeare. And I think 10 Things I Hate About You is a direct product of Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, I loved that too. Yeah. Although I don't like Romeo and Juliet as a play.
It's so ridiculous. They're children,
and they just. Dead.
Well, and I love, there's something I was watching, I don't know if it was like on YouTube or if it was Instagram, whatever it was, but there's somebody like talking about Romeo and how actually like the telling of this story and the way that we believe about it is all wrong.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is like Romeo's friends being like, dude, you were just with this other girl last night talking about how much you loved her.
Yeah.
And how she was the only woman in the world for you. And then like the next day you're going to see like her cousin or whatever and be like all about her. And then you're going to go die. Like, you know what I mean?
The whole thing is ridiculous.
And I think kind of like the take on it is that like, actually Shakespeare was being sarcastic and we don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, because...
Which wouldn't surprise me, because he is quite, like, cheeky in a lot of his stuff.
Yeah. You know what Shakespeare I like? Something's Rotten.
You know what I'm excited to see? It's coming to Segerstrom at the end of the next season. Segerstrom is the local performing arts center that I go to and I have season tickets to. I just saw Clue. It was so good.
It's coming to the Amundsen. I need to go see it.
Yeah, it was really good.
I need to see it. I work near the Amundsen.
Which is a theater in LA.
Yes, sorry.
And mine's in Orange County because we live in Orange County in LA, if you haven't picked that up yet.
Yeah.
But it's Anne Juliet.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really excited to see that.
I really want to see that.
Yeah, which, you know, it's a musical. It's a jukebox musical with modern songs, but it's like if Juliet hadn't died.
I've wanted to see that for so long. Maybe I'll have to try and get a ticket for the same night.
Yeah. I'll let you know when my tickets are.
Yeah, because I really want to.
They're on like Wednesdays, but I can always move it to not a weekday.
Yeah. I really want to see that one.
Yeah.
I've heard such good things.
But... Maybe like you, I like the idea of Shakespeare. I have a very formative memory of Shakespeare because I had two friends, and in junior high or middle school, doesn't matter. Because for me, that was two separate schools. It was mostly the same people. But we would, during like silent reading and stuff, we would go into the hallway and read Shakespeare plays together. And so it was really exciting. They had both done a theater group called Short Shakespearean, where they were both in Taming of the Shrew. My friend Kate was Katerina. Or, no, she wasn't Bianca. Maybe she was Bianca. She's going to correct me. And she was also Helena in Midsummer Night's Dream. And then my friend Tanya played like smaller roles. But yeah, it was really big with them. So then I joined in, and I was, got into it as well. But we would read it in the hallway until we had to put a stop to it, because then the other students got jealous that we got to go out and be in the hallway because they thought we were goofing off.
We are being even nerdier than you are. We are being nerdier than we would be if we were in the room.
So we had to put a stop to it because then other students were out in the hall, and she couldn't have the whole class out there. So it was pretty dumb. But yeah, great movie, love it. My only final thought was that when they go to the Fremont Troll, those vines are fake. There are no vines all over the Fremont Troll.
It doesn't really mean anything to me.
There's a scene with Bianca and Cameron, and they're like walking, it looks like stone, like under an overpass, and there's vines everywhere. And for those that are more native to the Pacific Northwest, specifically the Seattle area, you recognize that as the Fremont Troll, which is an actual place. And like just north of Seattle, in Fremont.
Yeah.
And it literally is. And I'll post a picture of myself on of myself at the Fremont Troll. Because I went there not that long, a couple years ago. You said, you were talking about the Fremont Troll, and it made me just think also another theme of at least this episode and the next episode is the Pacific Northwest. True story.
It's interesting. Well, and that's where like all the like alt rock started, and grunge, and
yeah, we didn't even talk about Bad Reputation. How that is like one of the best songs ever.
Oh my god, it's so good. I mean, they're all covers.
Yeah, but it's still a good song.
No, I mean, and I love them, and I love that there is like female covers of but yeah, so it's just funny to me that that's such like a late 90s, early 2000s, like kind of like where all the alternative, earthy, crunchy, protest riot girls are out of, Anyway. All right.
Any other last I feel like I quoted myself out. I said all of my quotes. My
favorite quote, aside from cat, wow, is, "She hates you with the fire of 1,000 suns."
Oh, I did have another. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I say it to this day.
Yeah. I like the scene where she's sitting there, Kat is sitting there reading, and her dad comes up. "Hello, Katerina, make anyone cry today?" "Sadly, no, but it's only 4:30. And the look he has when he just smiles down at her so fondly, like he's a little proud of her.
Then let her go to Sarah Lawrence.
Right? He does.
I know.
He is a good dad at the end.
He's a good dad at the end. And I get it. Like, their mom is gone, and it's a whole thing. We couldn't just let me end it on the quote, though.
No. No, it's my movie.
Now I hate you with a fire of 1,000 suns. It's so funny. I say it all the time. I'll be like, oh, I hate it with the fire of 1,000 suns.
And end.
Anyway, yeah. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram or other things at But Is It Pod.
This is a very long and winding road,
Yeah.
so if you made it this far, congratulations.
If you're on audio, check us out on video.
Yes.
On YouTube now.
YouTube.
And otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
But Is It Podcast is produced by Traci Mueller and Beth Hofeldt.
The artwork is by Anna Apperson.
And music by Devin Wall.